We need to have a more dynamic approach to professional development, to learning. We will need to pivot between roles, maybe between industries. So that versatility in how we adopt our learning is very important, as opposed to that really sort of linear approach to work and that sort of additive way of just deepening your layer of expertise.
Hello and welcome to the Mind Your Leadership podcast. I'm Karen Zook, and today I'm happy to speak with Niki Avraam. Niki is a legal entrepreneur reshaping leadership and workplace dynamics. With a background in employment law, she founded Avraam Solicitors, challenging norms across industries. Through keynote speeches and leadership lesson series, Niki advocates for autonomy in roles, drawing inspiration from everyday experiences. She champions entrepreneurial thinking and navigating the authenticity trap for personal and organizational growth. Join us as we learn how Niki disrupts traditional industries by infusing entrepreneurial thinking into corporate culture. We'll also uncover some leadership wisdom in unexpected places like Greek, Cyprus Kitchen, and Napolitan Pizzeria. So stay with us. Niki, thank you for joining.
Lovely to be here, Karen. Thanks for having me.
Sure, and I want to ask you if you can share with us more about your journey from building departments to founding Avraam to becoming primarily focused on the future of work. What motivated you to this shift?
Yeah, sure. It's been a very entrepreneurial and unconventional journey through law. So I started life as an employment and discrimination lawyer. And alongside the lawyering, the fighting, the discrimination, unfair dismissal cases, I was building employment and discrimination law departments within bigger firms because it wasn't a practice area within its own right. It was annexed to commercial law. So that meant that I turned down the conventional roles in commercial law with that delineated career path. And I proposed a business plan to the partners of the firms to say, this is an area of growth. I saw lots of legislation coming in from Europe. I saw it as a vehicle for societal change. I was excited by the discrimination legislation in particular. I thought I could have impact and that would benefit the firm and its clients, the workforce. So my entrepreneurial journey began as an intrapreneurial journey, really from day one of the workforce. And I was very much motivated by the notion of working with agency and autonomy over what I did day to day in collaboration with the firm, aligning my own strengths to those of the firm, goals and objectives, and also the architecting of my own job role and how that evolved, progressed, moved forward. And the conversation just got bigger. I founded my firm 10 years ago with my business partner, Avraam, which is a broad commercial firm in London. And we sought to bring a kind of freshness and a vitality to law. I always wanted to break down that traditional perception of what a lawyer was. So we were very collaborative. We are very collaborative in the way we serve clients. We were really kind of resistant against lawyers being possessive over their clients because that's at cross purposes with the client needs. And we also sought to reshape the way we took people on. So not just focusing on the technical skills, but those with a diversity in journey and essential skills so that would enrich the firm, because that's really the gold dust. The conversation has got bigger in terms of how we've advised clients and what we've seen. Clients are not just looking at how do we prevent discrimination or employment claims from arising. How do we shape the workforce of the future? And I'm really obsessed with various questions around that because it's imperative that we address them. The future is now. Mm-hmm. So looking at how do we shape the workforce of the future? How do we ensure that people are invigorated and feel significance from work because we all deserve that? And how do leaders and organizations cultivate that so organizations and individuals can thrive together it's really a focus on that, because I think it's so important in the world that we're in. There's been such a massive shift, and it's not just a technological shift. It's got to be a mindset shift that precedes that, goes alongside that. There's a shift in demography, and we need to address these questions now. So I'm spending all of my time really focusing on those, speaking about them, writing about them, and getting messages and developing concepts that address those key questions.
Can you give me one of the quick questions that you are touching upon nowadays, and how you helping your clients to go navigate it?
A lot of the time when I've been, I'm not lawyering day to day anymore, because I'm focused on these sort of bigger impactful questions. But when we're fighting a discrimination case, for instance, you get into the bones of the business. I've also defended individuals, but that extends to how can we prevent these from arising? What do we need to do to address the culture of the organization? And how do we shape the workforce in that broader sense? Mm-hmm. And so that question began to get bigger. So I wasn't just talking to clients about discrimination or unfair dismissal or how to handle a grievance or a disciplinary. How do we shape the workforce of the future became the key question when I really thought about the concepts that I was developing around ownership culture primarily. That was one of the key questions I was addressing. And also looking at the world we're in, the world we're going into. How do we keep people feeling significant and invigorated? That's so important. It's always been important in my career journey, and I'm not unique in that. People are so much more focused on purpose. Why they're doing, particularly since COVID and all that we've been through.
Sure. So your concept challenges some of the conventional wisdom in the workplace. Can you explain the philosophy behind the ownership culture and becoming architect of our own careers, and how does it transform organizational success?
Well, Karen, when I look at my own journey, my own industry, it's a very conventional one, very traditional, and that's still the case. So when I went in there, I really applied an entrepreneurial mindset, a business mindset to that industry, not just the organizations I was at, but I was really challenging a lot of the conventions around you're having to earn a certain amount of years in order to business developed, in order to get out there and win clients. I understood all the concepts around going above and beyond and serving clients from day one of the workforce, not because of my time at law school and not because of how I was developing my technical skill, but really my understanding of what it takes to go above and beyond, to hold the client's hand throughout that whole journey, case journey. So the notion of smashing conventions and doing things in your own way and autonomous working is not just about going in there and, disregarding all that the traditional industry is about. It's really the imperative importance of people having autonomy and agency over how they construct their roles, how they move forward, how that job evolves in collaboration with the firm, working within the values and actionable principles. There are a bunch of studies to show that having control, not just in work, but in day-to-day life, is at the top of what people need to lead a happy life, what elicits joy. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a study, I think it was across 79 countries, and they were looking at autonomous working. They were evaluating what employees need and want. They found that more than half of those employees would sacrifice 20% rise in salary for more control over what they do. And that study also talked about learned helplessness. That's people not taking the initiative to do things because they don't feel that they have control. Powerlessness in any aspects of life is so debilitating. So that is one of the top key concepts that I have developed around what we need to feel that invigoration, and also what's required to go into the world that we're in. I mean, even looking at AI, how we craft roles, employees need to take the initiative. AI, generative AI is really significant for knowledge workers, and they need to they need to assess how they adopt those generative tools. And that means building that into the crafting of their jobs. So all of that it's so important, and it's imperative that we act on that now and that organizations cultivate that.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. You're talking about the fact that people need to show up fully to the workplace to feel fulfilled, to create their own path, also within the organization, to search for the alignment within the organization value and their own value, and to see how they are proactive there, and even crafting their own job description if they need to, or being active. And for this, we need to really be authentic, right? We need to dare to bring ourselves to be in confrontational, sometimes discussions and not agree with everybody. And I think this is a challenging for a lot of people. And you also talk about the authenticity trap. So I'll be happy to hear what you mean by authenticity trap and how we can overcome it. Our leaders can overcome it and employees.
Yeah, the idea behind the authenticity trap, which got a lot of people riled up because, we talk a lot about authenticity and being true to oneself. That's important, right? But what I really mean by that is, the importance of the agile, adaptive mindset, the importance of being multilingual in our approach to work and leadership, and the responsibility of organizations to support that in a safe to fail environment. Because trying on those different hats and figuring out how we can maneuver between different roles, between different jobs is really important in order to figure out what type of leader we want to be, what type of disruptor, innovator. You sometimes need that. You need that agility, and the future belongs to those with that adaptive mindset. Because going forward, the era of the fixed job title is gone, or it's going. We need to have a more dynamic approach to professional development, to learning. We will need to pivot between roles, maybe between industries. So that versatility in how we adopt our learning is very important, as opposed to that really sort of linear approach to work and that sort of additive way of just deepening your layer of expertise. I've really applied that throughout my career. Even if actually before that, even if I look at my childhood, I live in London. I was born here. My parents are from Cyprus, so I'm Greek Cypriot. We grew up in a Greek Cypriot household. It wasn't just the language that I had to adapt when I went out there in order to be understood from people from different backgrounds. In order to communicate in the best way possible, I had to adapt everything, not just the language, but the way I was talking, the type of, gesticulations I was making. All that is adaptive. And as long as your core is strong and you know what your values are, then we can be flexible in other aspects. Some of my core principles are around integrity, transparency, honesty. When I go into business partnerships, or even when we've taken on clients where their values perhaps don't align with those, that's where I'm uncomfortable. That's where I feel that I haven't got adequate control in the way that I'm working. As long as those things align, you can be flexible in your approach. And that's really what leads to that diversity in thought and experience, and makes for a richer workforce.
I didn't understand what does it mean, the authenticity trap. I understand what does it mean to be authentic and to be aligned with our value. And you say when we have our core and anchor, we can better interact with others. We can lead not from an ego place, but from really listening and see what resonates within us. But what does it mean, the authenticity trap? Why do you think authenticity can cause us a trap?
I think it's the interpretation of authenticity, where you interpret it to mean that you're really attached to your true self and you're not willing to move from that or experience the potential evolution of that, even if it means working beyond your comfort zone. So, for instance, if there's a leadership position on the table, if there is a job with, tasks that involve technology and you're not comfortable with that, that's not me. I'm not going to try that. If there's a public speaking opportunity and you feel that, yeah, you could potentially envisage yourself there, but you're too scared to move forward because you've never done that before. And you are attached to what you say is your true self. No, that's not me. I'm not going to try it. That's what I mean by the authenticity trap.
I understand. So I see it as, what you're saying. It's like usually when we're really present in the situation, in the moment, we are really changing, right? There's the paradoxical presence issue, because when we're present, we change. When we don't change, we are not present, right? So it's kind of a paradoxical, because our true self actually always evolves and changes, right? And if I'm so attached and coming with a coherent self-image, so I'm not really present. I'm attached to how I'm being seen, to my ego, what is reflects outside, and then I'm not present and I'm not evolving and changing. And actually, yes, in order to really be true self, we need to understand that we always evolve, we are always changing. It's like the Zen story that says that you can't get to the same river twice, right? Getting the same river twice, because the river always changes. And hopefully we also changing all the time. So this is actually, it resonates with me by being authentic. It's actually, and being mindful and present, it's actually being open to changes, embracing an open mindset, exploring, being curious to see what's resonates with me. And yes, getting out of our comfort zone in order to evolve and grow. And once we go out of our comfort zone, then we expand our reach, expand our presence, right? Because now it's already not something that we don't know to do, because we already acquired the skills, and now we need to go again out of the comfort zone. So it's kind of a process. And yes, and you also say that the fact that you lived in different countries, and the fact that we need to have an open mind and be multidisciplinaries nowadays. We need to learn a lot of things, not only one thing. We can learn mathematics, we can learn mindfulness, we need all these various tools and skills in order to succeed and navigate our professional, personal life in this new future. Am I right?
Yeah. I think that's really well put, Karen. And also the way that you've related there, working beyond our comfort zone with that authenticity trap, multilingual dynamic. That's what one of the phrases that I coined around the working beyond your comfort zone is preferred discomfort, and the importance of that. Because it's not, okay, we doing things that we absolutely don't want to do, that really is beyond any of our sort of vision and purpose. It's about being on the periphery of something that you know is going to lead to growth and invigoration. And there's a bit of pain. It's uncomfortable, but you work through it. And on the other side of that, there is progress, there is evolution. And cultivating that in any organization leads to that collective adaptability. Different organizations have varying success with that. And much of the time, I believe that it's because there's not that safe to fail environment, and people are not encouraged, or they do not feel safe in working within that comfort zone, or there is too much of a commitment to the traditional way of doing things. And this is what I've seen in so many industries, including the legal profession. There's a fixed trajectory, for example, this upward career path. You're an associate, then you become a partner, then you do sort of ownership things at the top. We need to encourage people to look sideways, to the left and the right, because that is not part of our future. I really think there is something in that the career portfolio mindset. However we do it, even if it's anchored to our core area of expertise and we do different things around that, I think that's what's going to be required going forward. As I've said before, not that sort of additive, deep layering. And there are so many instances of discomfort that I can reflect on. And I've written articles around this, just looking at from childhood through to my professional journey. And some of them are really recent. I'm looking at developing my own personal brand. And I was uncomfortable doing that at the outset. because I was trying to align that with the growth of the business. Plus, I was getting out there, putting my face on what I stand for, what I believe. I wouldn't have been comfortable doing that, say, even 3 years ago. But I can really, that I got over that very quickly, because that's an anchor. And there are so many things that I'm doing around that. And in any event, that platform really serves everything I'm doing, including the business, because it makes the brand more relatable, more trustworthy. People deal with people. But what I'm saying is that there are so many instances of discomfort, and I only know my own. But I think we all have an appetite, varying appetites, to work beyond our comfort zone. But I believe that for everyone, it can lead to that growth, that invigoration.
So you actually invite people to embrace the unknown, to dare to get out of the comfort zone, to look in different direction, not to go like the traditional path, and to explore new ways. Because it really resonates with me, because, I bring the mindfulness and present to leaders. And as we are more present and mindful, we can see much more path to achieve our goals, much more creative path that we didn't see before, because we were blind to different perspective. We were going only in the right direction, acting upon our emotions, instead of like taking a deep breath, feeling my fear. It's okay to feel fear, but not letting it manage me. And decide, okay, it's really scary for me to go abroad nowadays, but this is what I want to do, right? So what do I do in order to feel this fear, give it hand, and go, although this fear, how can I connect to other emotions and to go forward, even in baby steps, to dare to have to do baby steps, make baby steps, because people really are afraid. But if they know they can do small steps, it will help them to go forward.
Yeah, whatever the pace, whatever the velocity, and it sometimes requires a detachment from your ego. We can be romantic in terms of our expertise and, the things that we've come up with before, how to strategize. Forward motion and evolution means sometimes we have to step out of that. I'm a big believer in, if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. That doesn't facilitate my learning and forward motion. And if I look at the high and low points of my career, the highest points have always been in the building process. The lower points have been where I felt I'm in limbo, not going forward and not learning. And sometimes that's because I'm stuck, fearful, too slow to move forward. But at the same time, in those instances, I've probably been the perennial expert in the room. It's not when I've been at my happiest.
So, if listeners are listening to us and say, okay, tomorrow morning I want to adapt this state of mind, what should I do differently? Like small steps that I can do differently in order to embrace this new state of mind in this new workplaces. What would you offer them?
Well, some of what I've gone throughout my career, I think is useful to reflect on that. One of the things I've done is to reflect on what my core strengths are, and to look at how does what I'm doing align with those? What can I do to develop those further? What would make me happy if I really look forward to the future? Where do I really want it to go? Think big. When we're in our comfort zone, our world shrinks. And I also think changing your community is important. And it doesn't have to be in a big way. For instance, I remember post-COVID going to a lawyer convention, lawyers, accountants, surveyors. And I went to that and I came home and I thought to myself, I can never go to one of those events again, because, not because the people there were so terrible, but because that community, I'd been within that for so many years. And I'd almost outgrown it. I wasn't learning from that. And I started to change my community. So I gained that outsight. It's difficult to sit in a room and to strategize, what's my next big plan? It doesn't normally work like that. You need to get out and start talking to different people, gain that outside and bring it back in. And that helps an adaptive mindset, and not looking at what the career trajectory has been in whatever industry you are in the past. A lot of that is dying. We need to look at how we build our essential skills those are the things that will take us through. I quote, there's a McKinsey study, I've talked about it a lot because the figures are so stark. That study said that by 2030, 1 in 16 jobs would be obsolete. Mm-hmm. So that occupation shift means we have to have that mindset. And if you look at different organizations, I think Ogilvy is one of them, the advertising agency, they are quietly hiring, which means they are looking within their organization and looking at different skill sets as the jobs change and shift. Those will not remain static. It's about building you and your skills in order to take you forward.
I love it. You say, actually, open your mind, and the practice is meet different people, listen to different viewpoints. Usually we meet the same people and the people who think like us, right? And you invite them to have a coffee, even once a week, once in 2 weeks, with the person that you don't know, with the person from a different industry, different position, and just be open to listen and to see what resonates within you. And I think this is a great practice because this will, at the end of the day, it will resonate with you and you create your own path and you will take what's connected with you and what doesn't work for you, you don't need to embrace, but it kind of changes the environment. Then you can see different things, right? Otherwise we're going to the same job, the same people, and it's really, we kind of an automatic behavior. So I really love it and I really believe in it. I want to ask you another question about your leadership lesson series that you draw from wisdom from everyday experience and background. What inspired you to look for leadership lesson in places like Greek, Cyprus, kitchen, or Napolitan pizzeria? And how does this inform your vision and adaptable and relatable leadership in the modern workplace? And it resonates with our last question, but if you can elaborate about it a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, some of these titles sound bizarre. There's everything in that leadership series, from leadership lessons from the Greek Cypriot kitchen, leadership lessons from bad haircuts, to leadership lessons from the Napolitan pizzeria. The concept behind that is, I think we all have an incredible bank of wisdom that we can draw from. That's what I mean by life lessons that we can apply to work and leadership. That really is what assists us bringing our individuality to the workplace. And again, making for that richer, more diverse workplace. So when I go to universities and I'm speaking to Gen Zers, primarily young people who haven't stepped into the throes of the workforce, they might have had temporary jobs. How are they to know what it is to apply a leadership mindset if they've never occupied a boss position or a management position? The encouragement there is take from your own lives. There has been instances throughout your life where you've experienced various things. It might be that they've organized a family party or even a funeral. Even by the age of 19, 20, we've been through a whole host of life experiences. I didn't learn that much from law school in terms of those skills that really are the gold dust that have seen me through. The superpower that I applied to my work really came from all of the experiences I had growing up, the people I had been inspired by, places I'd been. The leadership lessons from the Greek Cypriot kitchen is about applying the principles of hospitality to work and leadership. That's how I knew from day one of going into the workforce what it was to go above and beyond for clients, beyond what they even anticipated. Because it was presenting the best version of my work, of my service, not just fighting the cases, but really holding their hand, going through it with them, and then staying with them to assess what can we do differently going forward to prevent that from happening again. I wrote one recently, leadership lessons from the sisterhood. And I mean the sisterhood in the literal sense of I'm one of 3 sisters, okay? I've got 2 older sisters. So I was drawing from that the fact that I think one of the reasons I felt courageous in my life and the ability to risk take is because I have felt that they've got my back. I have felt that mutual support and collective backing. And there's been instances throughout my career, sometimes I felt that, sometimes I haven't. where I've been in a boardroom when a lawyer's trying to outsmart me in the presence of a client because they want to show their sort of legal technical prowess, even when it's not in the client's best interest. And I have felt that they haven't got my back. And so, you reflect on all of these life lessons, because that's how you know the importance of those principles. We can all write mission statements and vision statements, but a lot of the principles that I've developed, the experiences that I've gained, throughout my professional career, but it's been through those almost non-tangible life experiences. And I think that's very important for us to reflect on those and to understand the importance of them.
Wow, I really love it, because I think this is the essence of our learning and our journey. We learn from the day to day. And I want to circle back to a few things that you said. First of all, inspiration. It's all around us, right? It can be my manager, my sister, my father, or whoever that inspires me to go my own path. That something resonates really deeply inside of me to do my own things. So this is amazing. And I invite people to open our mind and to see this inspiration around us, because inspiration sounds like a really big world up there, but it's not up there. It's down here in the day to day, right? In our encounters with people, in our journey. So this is, I really love it. And I love the fact that you said to be able to pause and reflect upon small things, small interactions, small situations that we are going through, because there's so much to learn from them, and it doesn't need to be a big thing. And it's amazing. I really love the story with your sister, that you understood from this, that they had you back, and then you felt confident. So it's an important lesson. And then now that you will go forward, you will look for places that you will feel supported, right? So I think it's crucial and amazing. And this is actually authenticity, right? Because each and every one of us has his own journey and his own path and his own learning, right?
Yes.
So just open your mind, be present, enjoy life, personal, professional, and see it as a learning opportunity, right? And even if we didn't succeed, that's okay. The fact that we learn from this experience, this is what important, not the attachment to the results, right?
That's right. Yeah. And I think different organizations support and do this better than others. There's lots of literature around safe to fail cultures, the need to iterate and all of that. But not all organizations build the clear values, principles, even the mechanisms to see that through, because there is a science behind that. And they can be quite rigid structures in order to make people feel that they can innovate, they can experiment, they can bring their individuality. It's not about allowing everyone to come in, be yourself and let things happen. You look at the really big companies, you look at the Amazons and the Googles, they have built rigid mechanisms in order to engender the safe to fail, the innovative approach. Amazon does it from the time you get interviewed to how they remunerate. What have you tried? What have you experimented? What's your failure rate? Netflix thinks that they haven't got a high enough fail rate or high enough percentage of cancellation. So the mechanisms that are built in order to engender that are really, really important, and that we're clear in organizations about what the values are that bind people together at the top, and what the actionable principles are, and that individuals are able to move within those pillars, within those clear pillars, and be themselves, bring themselves, understand each other, experiment, fail. It's really important in the world that we're going into.
Yeah, so you're talking again about transparency and clarity, right, of structures, of boundaries, right? You need to put boundaries for people in order for them to feel safe to bring themselves fully, right? Because if there's no boundaries, they won't feel safe to bring themselves.
That's
so
right.
It's like holding this tension, right, between creating the space, but also putting boundaries. Say, okay, this is in our company. We appreciate it. We're looking forward for it. And this behavior we're not a fan of. So we really need to be clear of what we are looking for and help people bring themselves and to have the breaks. Niki, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for your wisdom. If people want to reach out and find you, where can they find you?
Thanks so much for having me, Karen. It's been amazing and very quick. I feel that we've had a brilliant discussion in the space of time that we've had. So Niki Avraam, I have a website. It's Niki with 1K, Niki Avraam.com. That's it. And on there, you can find me, you can find the articles that I've put out there, book me for keynote speaking. And I'm on my main social media platforms, LinkedIn and Instagram, both Niki Avraam, Niki Avraam. That's where you can find me.
Niki, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. You're invited to subscribe to our podcast in order to know when we upload a new episode, and follow us on social media. Thank you for listening. Until next time, take care and bye-bye.